day of ABRF 2026. I have a few housekeeping notes before we get to hear from Kelly. Just as a reminder, please silence your cell phones, which I just did because I always forget to do that. Photography of ABRF meeting sessions is permitted, subject to the speaker's request not to be captured pre-publication information. Recordings of this program session will be available on the meeting website following the annual meeting. ABRF's social media policy is that everything can be shared. If a speaker asks that it not be shared, please respect the speaker and do not post on any social media. The hashtag for this event is #ABRF 2026. Unless noted by the speaker, questions are to be held until the end of the session. And please go up to the microphone, since this is a session that is being recorded, so that your questions can be heard and the answers and questions can be recorded. As you probably already know, please download the app. It will provide you with all the information you need. And one last thing, all attendees will receive an overall meetings evaluation survey following the meeting to help improve our ABF meeting experiences going forward. So please take the time to fill that out. Now, before I introduce Kelly, Kevin here is going to talk for about a minute, looking for volunteers for the ABRF Career Development Committee. Kevin?
So thank you, Kathy. I think we're supposed to have a slide. But anyway, I'm Kevin Garish. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Career Development Committee. And I can't see any of you because these lights are incredibly bright. So what we have, I'm part of the Career Development Committee. We have 2 mentoring programs. We have an online once-a-month mentoring program, and we have a more extensive one-on-one mentoring program. We are looking for volunteers to be part of the Career Development Committee. And one final plug for the Career Development Committee is please try to attend, if possible, the speed mentoring session, which is tomorrow afternoon at 2:45 in room 408. And if you find me somewhere in the hall, please feel free to stop and talk to me about Career Development Committee. And with no further ado, I don't want to take any more of Kelly's time.
Thanks, Kevin. All right, so it's my pleasure to introduce Kelly Veer, our speaker for this morning's plenary session. She is Director of the Technical Strategy at the University of Nottingham and leads the UK Institute for Technical Skills and Strategy, working with partners across the UK and globally to strengthen skills, careers, and workforce sustainability. She is an internationally recognized advocate for technical skills and careers in higher education and research, and her journey began back in 1999, I found out, as a junior medical technician at the University of Nottingham. While doing that job, she got her education. She got a Bachelor's of Science from Sheffield Hallam University in 2005. In 2011, she got a Master's in Higher Education Administration from the University of Nottingham, and her dissertation focused on university technicians, undervalued, misused, and misunderstood. And then in 2022, she got her PhD in education, again focusing on technical roles in higher education, and this degree came from the University of Nottingham. While she was doing all that, she found time in 2017 to found and lead the Technicians Commitment, an initiative promoting visibility, recognition, career development, and sustainability for technical professions, with over 130 institutions signed on to this initiative so far. In 2020, she led the Talent, a £5 million Research England funded program advancing technical careers. And in 2026, she was asked to be a member of the UK Medical Science Career Task Force, which is being put together by the Academy of Medical Sciences to address the challenges faced in UK's medical science workforce. For all her hard work, she's been awarded the Vice Chancellor Medal from the University of Nottingham in 2016. And in 2021, she was awarded a Member of the Order of the British Empire, or an MBE, by Queen Elizabeth II in the 2021 New Year's Honors for her service to the higher education, recognizing her leadership and impact of advancing technical careers and workforce development. And again, while doing all this, she's actually authored several key reports and published works in journals like Nature and Times Higher Education. She's also edited the world's first book on technical professions, and she's created several flagship initiatives, including the UK Higher Education Technician Summit, the Papin Prizes, the Herschel Program for Women in Technical Leadership, and the Executive Program in Strategic Technical Leadership. So without further ado, may I ask Dr. Kelly Veer to come to the podium and tell us about her work.
Thank you for the really generous introduction, Kathy. I think you've covered all my slides. Good morning, everybody. I'm really delighted to be at my very first ABRF conference, and I very much hope it's not my last. A huge thanks to Kathy and the organising committee for inviting me. And thank you to all of you for making the early start on a Sunday morning. I hope you've all got some coffee. I was told ABRF are clearly a very dedicated bunch, and that absolutely seems to be the case. So thank you very much for making time to spend some time with me this morning to hear more about my story. I'd also like to thank my fellow Brit, Mark, for the excellent and very passionate keynote yesterday evening. Mark, you've set the tone beautifully for my talk this morning, so huge thanks. I understand that the theme of this year's conference is innovating at the intersection of science, technology, and collaboration. And while what for me embodies more than that than the technical professionals who enable research, teaching, and innovation in our universities and research institutes every single day. I'm here to talk to you about how myself and others have been working to change the culture for technical professionals in higher education and research. But before I get to that, I thought it might be helpful to just tell you a little bit about me and where I'm from. I guess you've worked out already I'm not local. So I am from Nottingham. For those of you who aren't familiar with Nottingham, we're a city right in the Midlands of England in the United Kingdom. I've learnt over the last few years when speaking internationally that the easiest way to sort of give some context to where I'm from is to tell you about our sports teams. Hopefully some of you have heard of Nottingham Forest, the soccer team. We have to say soccer here, the soccer team. We have Nottingham Panthers, the ice hockey team, which I know is big here, particularly Pittsburgh too. And we're very famous for a very British English sport known as cricket. You may also be familiar with probably the most famous thing to come out of Nottingham, Robin Hood. What Nottingham is also very well known for is my host institution, the University of Nottingham. We're very lucky at Nottingham to have two fantastic universities, my own institution, the University of Nottingham, and Nottingham Trent University. So the city houses about 80,000 students, 47,000 of those study at the University of Nottingham. And I am very fortunate and privileged to be the Director of Technical Strategy for the University of Nottingham, where I lead a team of over 500 technical professionals who are absolutely integral and vital to enabling and ensuring research, education, and innovation across our institution. So over the past 15 years or more, and you heard a little bit about that from Kathy, I've been working nationally and more recently internationally to really try and drive a culture change for technical professionals. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. But just to take a step back, I'm sure everybody here is aware that it absolutely takes collaborative teams to solve global challenges. And those global challenges are probably the reason we all get up and go to work every single day. But in those teams, we really need diversity of skills, of talent, of contributions, and technical professionals and the technical community are essential components and members of those teams. And I thought it'd just be helpful to outline who I mean when I talk about the technical community. You can see here on this slide, we have an array of job titles. Sometimes we're referred to as technicians, but also within the technical professional community, we have core facility directors, technologies, core facility managers, shared resource lab researchers, research associates, and so forth and so forth. You get the idea. It's a hugely wide and broad community with a huge diversity of skills. I'm really passionate about the need for increased recognition, career development, and strategic insight into the vital careers of technical professionals. And I'm passionate about that because I am one, and I promise I did not just dress up in a lab coat for the day and sit in front of a microscope to prove my point. I'm a technician by background. As Kathy mentioned, I became a junior medical technician at the age of 18 back in the late 90s. I have worked in imaging, so confocal fluorescence microscopy, cellular biophysics, and began my career in immunology. I've had a fantastic, predominantly laboratory-based technical career. Just to prove that I've been a technician for nearly 30 years now, I thought I'd show you my first day at work. That's me in the middle there. Yeah, that's just my little trick to make sure I've still got your attention. Yes, so I began my career in 1999, and I'll be honest, I fell into being a technical professional completely by accident. I'd finished my A-levels, and I really felt it was very important for me to go to university and gain a degree back then in the late 90s. But unfortunately, my family, we had a market stall. We couldn't afford for me to access higher education in the traditional sense. So I just looked for any job at all that would pay for me to do a degree part-time, because the tuition fees had come into being in the UK at that point. And I found a job advertisement in the local newspaper for junior medical technician at the University of Nottingham. And I'll be honest, I didn't even know that these careers existed. As a naive 18-year-old, I thought universities were full of professors and students. I had no idea that there was this whole army of colleagues who made research and education happen every single day. And so I commenced my new career, and I absolutely loved it. I loved being able to support students in, world-class education and with their projects and so forth. I loved being at the forefront of new discovery, experiments, research. I absolutely loved it. But I quickly came to realise that, unfortunately, for technicians in the technical community, the culture wasn't always that positive. I don't know if you can read that slide at the back. This is a cartoon that really spoke to me about, we've got two academic professors at the front saying, but how can you possibly produce world-class research with effectively bottle washers? Okay, and that is a stereotype that I myself have faced throughout my career. And I must stress that at Nottingham I've had fantastic support, but when you looked further than the immediate research group or the immediate faculty or even the immediate institution, as technicians we faced different degrees of invisibility, sometimes in institutional policy, for example, but even looking further afield, you would not see technicians talked about in higher education news and press. You wouldn't see them in the literature around the careers that we have in higher education. And believe me, there are numerous academic papers that have been written about administrators, professors, academics and so forth. Very little written about technical professionals. We were invisible in national government policy around science, for example, but we know we can't do science without skilled technical professionals. The list went on. Just to give you another couple of examples of the negative culture that myself and technical colleagues come across. We've often been referred to as minions more than once. Don't know if this speaks to anybody in the room. There's a real lack of understanding of what we as technical professionals bring to our organisations. And then you'll see here, I often like to refer to higher education as sometimes feeling a little bit like Downton Abbey. Are you familiar with Downton Abbey here in the States? Yeah. So let me explain that a little bit more. I guess what I'm getting at is that our academic colleagues were the upstairs colleagues. They were visible, they were celebrated, they're centre stage. And as technical staff, it often felt like we were the downstairs staff, if that makes sense, working tirelessly, but largely hidden from sight. And this led to this. My colleagues said this all the time. I wondered if we could have a show of hands in this room. Have you ever heard this or even said it yourself or something to this effect? How crazy is that? How can we just be the technician? Our institutions would not function without technical and expertise that we bring. But then maybe it's not surprising we feel like this, because higher education and research has traditionally celebrated the individual. We've celebrated the lone genius, like the principal investigator whose name is on that paper or that award or on that grant. And what we haven't traditionally been very good at is recognising and rewarding the actual team effort that enables that success. It's very lonely, the success of one person. It's the success of a whole team. And that is where technical professionals often sit, essential to research, innovation and education, but historically not as visible as they should be. And this culture has actually led to some significant challenges in the UK. We have a recognised shortage of technical professionals. Young people still don't completely know that these careers exist. We have significant equality, diversity and inclusion challenges. So, for example, the majority of technical professionals in the UK are white men, and we are not, reflecting the diversity that we could. We have a shortfall of an estimated 700,000 technicians over the next decade, and that is across all sectors, so not just higher education and research, but of people coming in to technical careers. We really have experienced a lack of professional identity, and our career pathways have traditionally been very murky, particularly in comparison to our academic colleagues. And so, back in, let me fast forward, so I'm now in 2012, having had several careers as a technician. I thought, well, do you know what, we really need to do something about this. And I wrote an article for Times Higher Education. Are you familiar with the Times Higher Education here? It's a weekly magazine about higher education. I do believe it's international in its readership. I'd looked back over the last decade of Times Higher Education issues, and as I said, this is a magazine or journal that comes out every single week, and technicians or technical professionals had featured less than 5 times in a decade. Again, another example of the lack of visibility of our profession. And so I thought, right, let's do something about this. And I wrote what I felt was a rallying call, saying we really need to recognise, the technical careers, roles and expertise we have in our institutions that make our universities and research institutes work. Now, when you write an article for Times Higher, they often commission some artwork to go alongside the article. So this is what it looked like on the internet. On the day, I ran down to the bookshop on campus and bought the physical copy of the magazine, and this is what I found. This is me. They drew me as the Cinderella of higher education. Now, what I wasn't trying to say here was I wasn't trying to say, look, you should feel sorry for us or anything like that. I was trying to say, look, we're essential to research. One good thing that did come out of this, though, was at the time I worked with 2 very senior, and dare I say it, notoriously very difficult and grumpy male professors. And from that day on, they were known as the Ugly Sisters, so it made it all worthwhile. And they're very good friends, so I should just add that as a caveat. Now, what I didn't know that I was doing by writing that article back in 2012 was that I was, accidentally putting my head above the parapet. And over the next few years, I was asked to speak at conferences. I was able to create opportunities locally, regionally, nationally, to really try and drive forward increased visibility and recognition for technical professionals. That involved creating the first UK-wide conference for technicians and technical professionals, which we established back in 2015, the UK Higher Education Technicians Summit. That still runs every 2 years to this date. And in my frustration that we seem to have national awards for every category of staff who worked in universities and research institutes, with the exception of technicians, I created a national award scheme called the Papin Prizes, which again are awarded every 2 years to celebrate technical excellence in academia. I was lucky as well to feature in a government campaign to encourage diversity into technical careers. And so over those few years, I guess I'm getting up here from 2012 to 2016, I was trying to do a lot alongside my day-to-day, role as a technical professional. That wasn't without difficulty, and I felt it wouldn't be honest to get up here and say, hey, look at all these things, and it all happened, beautifully and with no challenge whatsoever. On the whole, I have been given fantastic support by my colleagues at Nottingham for my advocacy for the technical community. But I just wanted to give you a couple of examples of things that have happened to me across the years. One time I was working in my research institute with a postdoctoral researcher. Now, I, together with my academic colleagues, had written the grant and interviewed for the grant that we were successful in that employed this postdoctoral researcher. And she'd been working with us for about a month. And it wasn't till about a month in that she realised I wasn't a postdoc as well, that I was a technician. And she said to me, "Oh my gosh, at the university where I came from, we wouldn't even wipe our shoes on you." And I just wanted to give you an example of some of, and I'm sure there might have been similar experiences in this room, but I just wanted to highlight a couple of examples of that negative culture, though, as I said, on the whole, I've had fantastic support. A senior academic at the University of Nottingham, when he learnt that I was being invited to give talks about the technical profession, what we bring to institutions and so forth, told me to get back in my box. Who did I think I was, like, going out and talking about my career when actually I should be chained to the lab bench generating data? So I just think it really highlights the difficulty and challenges that some technical professionals do have in terms of advancing career development and so forth. This really strengthened my resolve, and what I want to talk to you today are about 3 key initiatives that I've introduced since 2017 that are really starting to drive change for the technical community. And they are the Technician Commitment, the Talent Programme, and more recently, the UK Institute for Technical Skills and Strategy. So I'm going to start with the Technician Commitment. I decided back in around 2016 that we really needed some kind of pledge or promise that we could try and get universities and research institutes as the employers of technical staff to make, I guess, to advancing visibility and recognition and so forth for the technical community. And so I was able to secure some funding from an organisation called the Gatsby Foundation, and with that I launched the Technician Commitment. The Technician Commitment is very simple. We invite universities and research institutes to sign the Technician Commitment. By signing the Technician Commitment, they are pledging against 4 key pillars to support their technical community. And those pillars are visibility, recognition, career development, and sustainability. And by that I mean the sustainability of technical skills and roles within that organisation. We launched the Technician Commitment in 2017, and to be honest, I would have been thrilled if I could have got 5 universities to sign up to this. But we actually launched with 36 founding signatories, and the Technician Commitment today stands at over 150 signatory and supporter organisations. When an organisation signs the Technician Commitment, they nominate a lead to take forward that commitment on behalf of the organisation. And twice a year, I bring all of those leads together at conferences across the UK where those colleagues can share best practice, they can hear updates as to each other's Technician Commitment action plans and so forth, they can hear sector updates. And we've built a really vibrant, connected community of practice. And this is a picture of a recent event we held at Queen's University, Belfast. Now, when an organisation signs the Technician Commitment, we give them a year to submit a self-assessment and an action plan, and we keep this as simple as possible. So the self-assessment is 5 contextual questions, such as, how do you define a technical professional in your organisation? Based on that definition, how many do you employ? You'd be amazed at how many organisations could not answer those 2 questions at the very beginning. They had no idea of how many technical professionals they employed in their organisation. We also ask them to submit an action plan, a 2-year action plan, which they have to co-create with their technical community. Crucially, the Technician Commitment is not something that is done to the technical community. It is something that the technical community have to help drive themselves. And after 2 years, we then ask them for, another action plan and a RAG rating on their original one. We also ask them to publish that 2-year action plan online. And one of the very first questions that we were asked at the beginning was, well, we don't have a website where we talk about our technical community. So of course you can imagine we said, well, create one, let's make them more visible. And one of the very early indicators of impact of the Technician Commitment was we started to see websites like this from a range of our university signatories celebrating their technical communities and outlining the sort of work that they were going to put in place as part of their Technician Commitment action plan. This process has really been transformative. So when an organisation submits its Technician Commitment action plan, it's peer-reviewed by the Technician Commitment community. This is a really collaborative endeavour. This is a space where, as universities and research institutes, we're not looking to compete with each other, we're looking to learn from each other and share best practice. It's also unlocked significant inward investment into the development of the technical community in their organisations, unprecedented actually over the course of my career. We've seen, for example, new apprenticeships be launched to build early career pipelines. We've seen new career pathways be introduced for technical professionals. We've seen the UK's first technical professors appointed in academia. We've seen investment into internal sort of technical conferences, regional technical conferences, dedicated funding opportunities such as conference funds and so forth being introduced as part of technician commitment action plans and so forth. We estimate this to be in the range of several £million across the sector, so investment that we've unlocked through a simple initiative such as a pledge and an action plan. I believe this will move on. Oh, yeah. Is that moving on your screen? I don't think it is on mine. There we go. Excellent. So in the beginning of the technician commitment, we invited signatories, and as I mentioned, they're the employers of technical staff. There we go. Sorry, I'm seeing something different on my screen to yours, but that's all right. We're on the right one now. Over time, sector organisations asked us, oh, how can we get involved? We don't employ technicians directly, but we should be supporting the technical community. And so we now have formal supporters of the technician commitment as well. And these tend to be funders, professional bodies, learned societies, networks, and so forth. And you can see some examples on the slide there. We also ask our supporter organisations to submit a simple action plan which outlines how it will address the 4 key pillars of the technician commitment. And here's some examples from some of our supporter organisations of things, interventions and so forth they've put in place to support the technical community nationally. And these include things like dedicated funding opportunities or travel grants for the technical community. The Royal Society, which I believe is the oldest scientific organisation in the world, has a range of very prestigious medals and prizes that it gives to our most esteemed academic colleagues. We now have something called the Hawksby Award, which recognises technical skills and contributions. And things like this make a massive difference in just shifting that culture in a more positive direction. We've also worked to increase sector recognition. So Times Higher Education have a very coveted award scheme that runs every year in the UK. And again, they used to have categories for everything, but no category for technicians or technical professionals. We were able to work with them upon the advent of the technician commitment to create a new category for technical professionals, the Outstanding Technician of the Year. And you can see some of the winners that we have been able to award this to over the last 5 to 6 years. And that's really worked well to really raise the recognition of what technicians bring, the contributions they make. I sit on the judging panel for the Times Higher Awards. I'm the only technical professional, obviously, to sit on there. It's a very new category for them. And another way it's really addressed a culture change is with my fellow judges. At the very first year we held this award, they said to me, these people can't possibly be technicians. They're writing grants and they're contributing to papers. And I was like, yes, that is what we as technical professionals do every day. And it's really started to challenge those stereotypes at many different levels, this award. We've also been able to lead increased research and new policy insights into different aspects of the technical professionals' roles. And here's some of our early examples. So these are national sector reports covering themes such as EDI, which up until that point had only looked at EDI in the academic workforce, not the technical workforce. Student mental health and the key role that technical professionals play in terms of pastoral care for our students, which often isn't formally recognised. We had an explainer that we jointly authored with the UK's largest funder of research and innovation, UKRI, on how technical staff are funded in research. And there's a report here also demonstrated about the role of technicians in knowledge exchange. In the early days of the technician commitment, we were also able to work with organisations to advance career pathways for technical staff. So you can see here how we've sort of modelled the technical career pathway in a higher education institution. Now, traditionally as a technician in the UK, to advance your career, you had to drop your specialism and become a manager. But we really need technical specialists at the highest level in our organisation to enable our research innovation. But there was no career pathway for them. And so we were able to work with a number of organisations to introduce a technical specialist pathway alongside the management pathway for technical professionals. And I'm going to come back to this pathway later in the presentation. To my surprise, very early in the technician commitment, we were able to start influencing UK government policy. This is our former Science Minister, Amanda Soloway, talking about the technician commitment. She led something called the UK R&D Roadmap. This is back in 2020. Now, the UK R&D Roadmap is a huge government policy about R&D in the United Kingdom. You can imagine these roadmaps come about every few years. For the first time ever, this roadmap talked about technical professionals and the importance of technical skills to UK R&D. And that might sound like a small thing, but it was a massive leap forward that as a country we were considering technical skills when we thought about UK research and development. We were able to continue and influence different parts of UK policy around future research assessment, research bureaucracy, a people and culture strategy, and so forth. And something that we've been able to do also, which I'm really excited about, is increase engagement in public outreach and engagement to ensure that young people are aware of the amazing and varied and diverse careers you can have as a technical professional. And we have worked with the Gatsby Foundation, who have led a dedicated permanent gallery in London's Science Museum, all about technicians across all industries. And it's aimed at 12 to 16-year-olds, and it really aims to showcase, the fantastic careers you can have as a technical professional. The technician commitment started to gain some traction internationally. We weren't necessarily promoting it internationally, but organisations across the globe were hearing about it and coming to us to ask if they could be involved. And in 2023, we were really excited to welcome our first international signatory, the University of Sydney. And as my colleagues tell me, they think this is the venue for our next technician commitment signature event. Before I continue to talk to you about what came next, the talent programme and the UK Institute of Technical Skills and Strategy, I want to just showcase a short video which aims to demonstrate the impact of the technician commitment since its inception in 2017. So hopefully this will now play. Quite dramatic, isn't it? I asked the makers to make it look like a film trailer, and I think they succeeded. So we're at a point in the UK where we are able to have national conversations about technical professionals and the culture and the opportunities and the challenges facing those colleagues. And this created an environment where we could submit a grant for funding to design interventions to support the technical community more widely. And in 2020, I was really lucky and delighted to be awarded £4.9 million for a research programme called Talent. Talent was funded by Research England, which is part of UKRI, and it had 3 key work streams. The first was a policy commission, which was designed to enable increased strategic influence and insights into the technical community. The second was a range of culture change projects, which we aimed to pilot in a small number of universities before rolling out nationwide. And the third was bespoke training and development for technical professionals. Traditionally, technical staff had been able to access training which had been predominantly designed for academic or administrative colleagues, but nothing really designed with the technical context in mind, and we wanted to address that gap. I'm going to focus today on the Policy Commission, so Work Stream 1. This was a really important piece of work because actually, as a country, we had very little knowledge and insight into our technician workforce across UK higher education and research. We pulled together a board of commissioners chaired by my colleague Sir John Holman, who worked together for around 20 months on a range of key themes. Now, our commissioners came from industry, we had vice chancellors on there, we had technicians on there, we had funders on there. It was a really diverse group. And they explored themes such as, what do technicians do? What contributions do they make? Simple questions for the like of us in the room today, but as a sector, there was a real lack of awareness of this. What are the characteristics of our technician workforce? How are we funded, resourced? How do we progress through a career pathway? How are we professionally developed? How are we perceived? How are we recognised? How are we represented? How are we represented in policy? And what key partnerships can really help drive progression for the technical community? The resulting report was this, the Talent Commission. We published this in 2020 and we were able to launch it formally in the House of Lords in May 2022. Apologies, 22. It made 16 overarching recommendations to the sector. You'll be pleased I'm not going to go through all 16 of them with you this morning, but I will pick out one or two just to give you a flavour of the sort of things this National Commission was recommending to a range of stakeholders. The worst thing that could have happened for me would be if this Talent Commission, which is about this thick, ended up as a dusty report on a shelf and never really came to life and brought genuine action. But I'm really pleased to say that organisations across the UK have engaged with it fantastically and it's been received really well. One of its key recommendations, so recommendation number 9, I'm sure will probably have some resonance with those in the room today. This is about how we should ensure visibility of clearly defined career pathways and progression routes. Also, we should think about how colleagues can progress up those routes in similar ways akin to those for academic roles. And this diagram was actually a figure from the Talent Commission. Now, earlier on I talked to you about the creation of this specialist pathway alongside the management pathway, and that's fantastic, don't get me wrong, but equally, the way that we progress technical careers in the UK traditionally is by a process called regrading. So if you are a technician, to progress up the pathway, you would have to have your role regraded, which is about the business need for the role. It's not about the individual and what they deliver, it's about the business need for the role. The only other way to progress your career would be to apply for a new job. So they're the two routes. And that is still the case for the management pathway. But I'm really pleased to say that through the creation of this technical specialist pathway, we've been able to work with some organisations now to introduce a promotional pathway all the way through to professorial equivalence. And there's 3 institutions there who've done it. Newcastle University have also been awarding Professor of Practice to technical specialists who operate at the highest level, and for that they all get a gold star. We actually launched the Technical Specialist Career Framework at my home institution, the University of Nottingham, just last week. So now we have 7 levels in our technical job family at the university, and now it will be possible to progress as a technical specialist all the way up to the highest level, which is our level 7. Level 7 is equivalent to an academic professor. If you are a technical specialist and achieve level 7, you will be given the title Professor of Technical Practice. And that is based on individual contributions, so that we have a way of really recognising, retaining, and crucially also attracting, the very best technical specialists to our organisation. So as I said, we've had 3 or 4 universities in the UK adopt this approach now, but often I find that there's a domino effect. And when we get so many, we see the rest topple, and I think this is definitely a culture change that is coming across our sector for sure. Recommendation number 1 of the Talent Commission report was the need to really have strategic leadership of the technical community across institutions. Technical professionals are rarely represented on university executive boards, for example, when actually, technical skills are really what keeps our organisations alive. We advocated for the creation of technical strategic leadership roles, much like what my own role was like at Nottingham, so institutional oversight of technical skills and careers. And I'm really pleased to say that a number of organisations in the UK have introduced this new sort of senior leadership strategic role in their organisations. If anyone's interested in looking at the rest of the recommendations, you can find the Talent Commission on our Institute's website, and I have some links to that at the end of the presentation. But just to tell the rest of the story, recommendation 16 was that there should be a more permanent entity that really built on the work of the talent programme, which was a time-limited 5-year programme, and on the work of the technician commitment, which was running alongside talent, to provide a permanent entity to be a conduit, really, between government, funders, employers, technicians themselves, learned societies and professional bodies, and so forth. And in 2023, I was really pleased to be awarded £5.5 million to establish the UK Institute for Technical Skills and Strategy. The Institute, again, is funded by Research England, which is part of UKRI, so the largest funder of UK research and innovation. It's also co-funded by a number of partners and the Gatsby Foundation, who originally, as you may remember, funded the Technician Commitment at its inception. The Technician Commitment is not quite 3 years old. We launched in August 2023. And again, it was fantastic to see great press coverage of this, including what looks like a very happy former Prime Minister of ours at the National Institute for Technical Skills and Strategy being launched. Our vision at the Institute is that the UK is a global leader in science, in technology, engineering, medicine, but crucially also the creative industries where many technical professionals reside and make essential contributions. We want to ensure that technical careers are recognised, developed, respected, and aspired to. And it is that recognition that shows the contribution that technicians make to the UK's status, if you like, as a science superpower. It's a really collaborative initiative, so many of our Technician Commitment supporters are formal partners of the Institute. And we have sort of 7 key areas of work, and I just was going to take a short amount of time to tell you a little bit about each. So the first is the Technician Commitment. I've already talked to you about the commitment this morning, but the Institute formally hosts the commitment on behalf of the sector. The second area is our Research and Policy Group, and this is building on those initial reports I mentioned and the Talent Commission to really be an evidence-based, trusted source of knowledge as to technical skills, roles, careers. Our work has continued to publish those key sector reports around a range of issues. So we looked at the contributions technical staff made in COVID, for example. We've looked at research culture. We've looked at health and safety and the often overlooked contributions that technical staff make to ensuring a safe working environment for all our staff and students. And we've looked at strategic technical leadership. That's just some examples of some of our more recent publications. We have also been looking to address that gap in the literature that I mentioned earlier on in my presentation. We have published peer-reviewed papers around different aspects of the technical role, including our role as educators and teachers, our role in knowledge exchange, how we often work in that third space between academic and administrator, and what that feels like and looks like, and also some more provocative articles about why, for example, it is problematic for technical professionals to sometimes say they're teachers. We've written for publications like Nature and a UK publication we have called Wonky, again providing thought pieces, debate, opinion pieces and so forth about the roles of technical professionals. And as Kathy mentioned earlier, I was really surprised actually to find that there was no book anywhere in the world about the career of being a technician in higher education and research. And so it was fantastic to be able to bring a range of co-authors together and edit a book dedicated to this career. It covers a range of different lenses on the technical career, and it's just been fantastic to get that out there and really shout loud and proud about the technical profession. We've also continued to work with UK government and influence policy. You can see a range of different government and learned society sort of initiatives and reports here where we are representing the technical community and ensuring the voice of technical professionals is central to that. One of them in the middle there you can see around digital and technologies is part of our UK government modern industrial strategy. In their industrial strategy, they talk about a range of emerging technologies, or frontier technologies is the terminology that's often used. And what we're saying is, okay, that's fantastic that we're talking about these emerging technologies, but you also need to be thinking about the technical careers and roles and skills that we need to enable the use of those technologies. And we've recently, just 2 weeks ago, published some research that modelled that in the UK we need up to 120,000 technicians to work in those frontier technology areas alone. But I just thought that would give you an example of some of the work we do to influence government practice and policy. We respond to various policy consultations to ensure that technical staff are represented and heard, and we also work closely with UK funding councils. And I wanted to give you the example of UKRI. I mentioned earlier that UKRI are the largest funder of research and innovation in the UK. They are a signatory and a supporter of the technician commitment in recognition of that they employ technicians, and they also obviously are a huge stakeholder in terms of the technical community in the UK through the research grants that they fund at our different institutions. So traditionally, as a technical professional, and I'd be interested to hear the insights of colleagues here later, maybe over coffee, we would often contribute to grant applications. We would often write significant sections of them, but traditionally and historically we weren't allowed to be named as applicants because we were just technicians. We've been able to work with UKRI to change that culture, to change policy so that technical professionals can not only be named on research grants, but where appropriate, they can lead research grants in their own right, particularly when you're thinking about capital equipment, for example. It should be the technical experts that are leading that bid, not ghostwriting it for their academic colleague to then submit. We have also been able to ensure that the peer review college that reviews all grants across UKRI also comprises of technical professionals, because we need technical expertise to review our academic colleagues' grants, particularly where they're talking about technologies and methodologies, to offer that, technical expertise and sense check. This has been a massive culture change in the UK. It's been fantastic to see my technical colleagues proudly lead grants in their own right. And actually, in some schemes, we've seen actually stats that have come out of UKRI that demonstrate that particularly in the areas of capital equipment, you are more likely to be successful if you are a research technical professional leading that grant, or if there is a technical professional as a co-applicant. So that's been really exciting to see. We've also been able to work with the funder to provide dedicated grant opportunities for the technical community. This is an example from EPSRC, so this is our Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Council, who 2 years ago launched a dedicated bid for technical professionals, totaling £16 million for awards dedicated to those led by technical professionals for strategic technical platforms, and it's fantastic that we were able to award 11 of those. We've also been working with UK funders on something called REF. Now, this is the Research Excellence Framework. This is an exercise that takes place in the UK around every 6 or 7 years, and it assesses the quality of research coming out of our universities. And it's really important because that then determines the level of funding you get from the funder, basically, as an institution. So it's a £2 billion exercise. Technicians were never visible in REF, even though technical staff authored outputs, research outputs and so forth, that couldn't be recognised. And I'm really pleased to say that in REF 2029, it's fully inclusive of technical professionals. Not only will technical professionals' outputs be recognised, but institutions will have to talk about how they are supporting their technical community in their environment statement, which forms a key part of how much funding they are then awarded. So that's a massive lever for us to drive change. We've also been working with UK academies like the Royal Society as one of our supporters on dedicated events where we've been able to bring industry, educators, employers together to think about what we need to do to work collaboratively to, address the technical skills pipeline, for example, and think about how we can invest in the professional development of technical professionals across the UK. Another area of the Institute's work is our Learning and Development Academy. Now, this is built on that pilot activity in the talent program where we were designing bespoke learning and development opportunities for technical professionals. So we offer a range of opportunities to technical professionals now across the UK and beyond. There's some listed here that you can see. We have regular online festivals, so Springfest, Winterfest, which regularly attract around 1,200 technical professionals from across the UK, and we have a number of dedicated programs too. I just wanted to shine a light on two of our sort of flagship programs. We have worked with the business school at my host institution, the University of Nottingham, to develop the executive program for strategic technical leadership. Now, this links back to that talent recommendation about the need to have strategic leadership for the technical community in our organisations. We were creating these new roles in organisations, but we really needed to support them with a dedicated programme. We keep it deliberately small. We have around 25 colleagues a year, and this is a photo of our recent sort of third cohort of executive strategic technical leaders at the business school just earlier in the summer. The next programme that I just wanted to highlight to you today is something that I'm incredibly proud of. This is the Herschel Programme for Women in Technical Leadership. Now, you may recall that one of our very early reports out of the technician commitment was about equality, diversity and inclusion in the technical community. There were a range of stark findings from that research, but one of the key findings was that we had a shortage of women technical leaders, even in disciplines where women outnumbered men. And so I thought it was really appropriate for us to design an intervention, because it's one thing to have a finding, but it's another thing to try and do something about that finding. We created a 6-month program for women in either aspiring or current leadership roles, in technical leadership roles, and we opened it out nationally. I thought we might get around 40 women apply in the first round, but in our first cohort, we had 200 women complete a 6-month program, and to date, over 1,200 women have completed the 6-month Herschel program in technical leadership. It's actually named after Caroline Herschel, who was an astronomer and an early technician, if you like. She was the first woman in the UK to earn a wage for science, so we felt it appropriate to honour her. What's really exciting about this is we've actually started to see the data change. So over the last few years, from the point of doing the research to designing the intervention to having 5 years worth of Herschel leaders, we've started to see that gap really shrink now. We're starting to see some real progress in that space, which is exciting. Another area of the Institute's activity is our community and practice hub, and this is all about creating a connected, vibrant, collaborative technical community. So alongside those technician commitment signatory events where we bring everybody together every 2 years, we have a range of other activities. This is one I wanted to flag to you. This is our people-powered approach to research equipment sharing. In the UK, there has been a drive for us to document the large pieces of equipment that we have across our institutions and to try and drive an ethos of where we share kit instead of buying another instrument that does exactly the same thing in the lab next door. Traditionally, this has taken the form of a database of kit. And what we are saying is, kit is so much more than a list of kit. The kit's useless if you don't know the technical expertise who power that kit, who drive it to its limits and so forth. And so we have a repository, if you like, on our website of over, I think, 300 different items of research equipment and facilities, but crucially, that connect you to the technical expertise who are able to aid you with experiments and so forth. We also offer an equipment sharing fund so that anybody can apply to this fund to go and use something at a facility that is led by a technical expert to really encourage increased usage in our core facilities and research technology platforms. Another aspect of our work in the Community and Practice Hub are our knowledge exchange placements. So this is where there is a dedicated fund for technicians across the UK to apply for funding to go anywhere in the world, to learn about a new piece of equipment, for example, a new methodology, to shadow somebody who works in a similar space, and then to bring that knowledge back to the UK. We have UK to UK placement programs as well, but this international program has been the first of its kind, and there's just a couple of examples here of technicians in the UK who've been able to travel to partner organisations to learn something and bring that back, and to really, I guess, make lasting collaborative interactions. We've also led the creation of some national technical networks in some key areas. So one is around environmental sustainability. So we know that a huge number of technical professionals are responsible for driving environmental sustainability in their workplace, and this brings them together in a community of practice to share best practice, exchange ideas, and so forth. We have our network of strategic technical leaders, so those colleagues who've gone through that leadership program and have those positions in their organisations. We have our EDI network, who are constantly trying to evolve practice to ensure that we can advance EDI in our organisations. And we have our technology specialist network, which is a 600-strong community of staff who work in core facilities or technical specialists, for example. We bring them together once a year for a conference, a dedicated conference, to hear from funders, to hear from each other. It's probably not dissimilar actually to some of the sessions you have here at ABRF, but in a smaller setting. We also are continuing to run the UK Higher Education Technicians Summit. This is fantastic. We've had over 3,000 colleagues attend this summit over the years, and it's that dedicated professional development opportunity for technicians at every level in every university and research institute across the UK. Are you still with me? Because I know I'm throwing a lot at you. Thank you. A key area of our work, as I mentioned, is around education and career pathways, and we have the Education and Pathways Lab at the Institute, which is really trying to transform how we think about technical career pathways. I have a fantastic colleague, Sarah Allen, who leads this